Thanks for joining us this morning, everybody. We're going to get started. So it's my pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. I'd first like to thank the Alberta Business Family Institute and the Canadian Western Bank for hosting this event, for their understanding the challenges faced by women in family business leadership positions, and for the chance to highlight the opportunities, perspective, and value that women bring to family business. I'd like to thank our panelists for their time today and look forward to hearing them share their experiences. We have a wonderful program this morning, some great questions for our panelists that will lead to some insightful sharing. We'll proceed with introductions, move on to the moderated discussion, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So thanks and welcome. I'm going to hand it over.
Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today as we gather to celebrate and empower women in family business. My name is Stacey Diesel. I'm a Senior Relationship Manager with a focus in commercial with Canadian Western Bank at our Edmonton South District. At CWB, we know to truly serve business owners, we must think like them. We must know their struggles, we must live their triumphs. Today, we have the unique opportunity to do that. We're about to hear from a remarkable panel of women business leaders who achieved tremendous success in their respective industries. They're here to share their valuable experiences, insights, and lessons learned, and their inspiring journeys. As a female commercial relationship manager within the banking sector, I partner closely with business owners on their path to growth and success, and I understand the importance of fostering an inclusive and supportive environment for women in business. All of us have a responsibility to champion diversity, equity, and provide the resources necessary for women entrepreneurs to thrive. This is more important than ever, as Canada will see more than 3/4 of business owners plan to exit businesses within the next decade. And with that, more than $2 trillion in business assets could change hands during that time. The women we hear from today will explore various aspects of their path that led them to become leaders in the family business. They're sure to share lessons learned, the challenges that they've overcome, and what they see ahead. Through their insights and stories, we hope to inspire and empower you to pursue your own aspirations with renewed vigor and determination. I encourage you to listen attentively, ask thoughtful questions, and take away valuable lessons that you can apply to your own business and careers. Remember, as we stand at the edge of a future in which women leadership and entrepreneurship can shape and transform the Canadian economy, let's celebrate the accomplishments of these remarkable women here today and continue to support and inspire one another on a shared journey towards gender equality and economic empowerment. Thank you.
So much. Again, welcome everybody and thanks for joining us here this morning. My name's Lesley Williams. I'm board chair of Park Paving Ltd. We're a full-service paving, surfacing, and underground company, as well as a producer and supplier of aggregate, ready-mix concrete, recycled aggregates, and asphalt. My grandfather, grandmother, and father started the business in 1973, so this is our 50th year of operation. I began work at the business in 2005 after I finished my degree here at U of A. And I took some time off to start a family, and I have 3 kids. I have a 14-year-old daughter, I have a 12-year-old son, and I have a 9-year-old daughter. And that keeps me busy as well, but that's only part of the story, I guess. So in 2018, we moved to a board of directors format with a focus on strategic opportunities for growth and succession. And in 2022, I became board chair. And I look forward to bringing value and leadership to our company and to our future success. My sister and I actually also own a children's boutique in Chair Park called Max and Maud. I always forget about my other business, and it's also a family business too, so well steeped in the family business piece, but I always kind of tend to go to the construction side first. And my family has a long history with ABFI, going back to the very first Next Gen group in 2006. And I was honored to ask to join the board in 2019, and I've served in that position since. So thanks for the opportunity to be here today, and thanks to Matt. So we're going to move on to introducing the rest of the panel here today. I'll start to my left with Tina.
Good morning, everyone. Tina Naqvi-Rota. I'm CEO of Cameron Corporation. We're a real estate development company started here in Edmonton in 1980 by my parents. Both my parents started it. I joined in 91. My brother and sister both joined in 98. And my husband joined, I think, in 93 or 94. More recently, my eldest daughter, Alia, here joined for a little while, and then she said, no, I'm not ready yet. And so she said, I don't know if she said yet, but anyways, I'm not ready. And she went somewhere else. I said yet. So anyway, so we're into our third generation. She's the eldest of 12 grandchildren, so that'll be an interesting perspective. Most of them are under the age of 18. But yeah, we're real estate development, mostly commercial. That's kind of where we started. South Edmonton Common would be one of our projects. Windermere, the projects in Windermere, mostly grocery anchored or big box anchored centers. And that's primarily what our business. We've also done some land development with residential lots and multifamily as well. And I've been there since 1991.
Awesome. Thank you, Tina. Welcome. We'll move on to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Baptiste. I'm with Arrkann Trailer and RV. Our business was started in 1977 by my father and grandfather, and my uncle joined a few years later. I joined the business after I graduated from the U of A as well in 2005, and we have expanded since then to 6 locations across Alberta. I guess what do we do? It's kind of explanatory. So we sell RVs to help people connect with the RV camping lifestyle and everything that goes along with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Welcome. We'll move on to Jillene.
Hi, my name is Jillene Lakevold. I'm with All Weather Windows, and our business was started in 1978 by my great uncle who recruited my dad and another family member of his on his married side. And over the years, really my dad ended up being the key person for a long time, and we brought in a number of non-family member partners. And we've gone through lots of transition of partners over the years, and today we are a wholly family-owned business. And what we do is we build windows, doors, and glass. We have our manufacturing facilities here in Edmonton, and we distribute windows, doors, and glass from across Western Canada.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Welcome to everyone. Thanks to our panelists again, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about each of you, your experiences, and your business. So let's move right on along to our first question. So the first one it's for Tina, but of course everyone can chime in here and share their experience. So as women in leadership positions, we face unique challenges, and the same could be said for family business. Especially family members working in family business. On the other hand, we have opportunities that others might not have. So we recognize the challenges and opportunities are different for daughters and granddaughters of founders or CEOs. So Tina, would you share with us some of your experience being the daughter of a founder?
Sure. As I mentioned, my parents started in 1980. I really joined much earlier because I started cleaning the bathrooms in the office, of course, right? But I joined in 1991 after finishing my engineering degree. I didn't plan to stay with the business, but it started to be growing at the time, and my dad said, I need some help. Do you want to stay? So I said, okay. I didn't really know what I was doing at that time. I'm not sure if I would even stay, but long term. However, the nice thing, and I don't know if other women feel this way, but I really noticed a difference in dynamic between father-daughter versus father-son when my brother joined. So my dad and I were kind of, he always said, oh, you're my right hand, you're my, kind of support person, if you will. And yet him and my brother were always like this, right? Quite different in personalities because of the, I'm going to prove to dad that I can do this on my own, whereas I think women were more collaborative and, a little more respectful in terms of what my dad brought to the table and not needing to overshine that. But we were a good team. He was kind of a PR, sales kind of guy, and I was the quiet one in behind doing all the detailed work. And that worked for a long time. And it's funny because now that I look at myself now, I'm kind of the outward-looking one, and I passed the detail on to other people, and I never thought I would do that because that was kind of my role. So I see how I've evolved, but obviously opportunities and challenges. I mean, any business that you're part of, whether you're a family member or not, I mean, you have to prove yourself. You can't just say, okay, I'm so-and-so's daughter. So you have to prove yourself and build your own name reputation and your own name recognition, and so that comes in my case from an education, and then my values and the culture that I've carried with with the organization and with myself, and how I portrayed myself in meetings and with other people. And that's just something you kind of grow into. But the idea that, entitlement, that if you have that attitude, then you're going to be treated with that attitude. So, you have to show that you can, you've earned it and you can do it on your own, and that you're just as good as the next person that could be hired for that role, or maybe you shouldn't even be in that role. And that's something we're kind of learning as we're into third generation. We are probably going to end up in a situation where we have that, non-family member management in the next number of years, and so that maybe forever. We don't know what that looks like. But anyways, I always say it's the best of both worlds and the worst of both worlds working in a family business. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it is for sure. I mean, I think that my experience too has been that you almost have to a little bit more to prove, just to prove that you deserve to be there and you deserve to have a seat at the table. So, you kind of have to take that extra step. I've never found that the entitlement piece gets you very far on its own. So you like to backstop that with a little bit of something else for you. So thank you so much, Tina. Anybody else, anything you'd like to share on that piece there about having dad or grandpa changes as they come and go too, right? Tina, is your dad still in the business actively?
My dad just turned 81, and he will be in the business until he dies, because that's who he is. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, we've kind of had to manage him a little bit, and I'm his babysitter. He wouldn't like me to say that, but the reality is, so when he gets involved too much, I'll get a call from my brother who's running the operations and say, Dad's doing this, can you kind of reel him in? And so I'll have to do that. And so what he's done now is he's circumvented me and gone to his granddaughter, and he pulls her into meetings now. And so she's had to say, Grandpa, I'm not allowed to get involved in that. And so, yeah, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's fantastic mentorship and leadership that we've learned from him. So.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting the way you've explained it. It seems to me that you kind of have, changed from being the person in the background to working in the front. So you think that that's something that you got from your dad, or was it there all along?
Yeah, I was always an introvert, and I always felt he was an extrovert. I think I've just learned it over time. You have to just evolve and grow into that.
Step up and step in. That's right. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Tina. So each of us has traveled a different path to get to where we are today. Some grew into our roles, like as Tina mentioned. Others have been prepared, and sometimes, unfortunately, there's lots of situations we've heard of where people just aren't prepared, and the fact of the matter is somebody dies and somebody has to step in. So that's a piece of the family business, that's just a reality of what we deal with. So our experience could be different from our siblings or other family members too. And it was funny when we got here, we were talking about, and actually yesterday, I was having a discussion with my boyfriend, and he said, "Are you guys all oldest girls?" And I'm like, okay, well, I'll ask the question tomorrow and see. So oldest girl. All right, so we've got a little bit of a common situation here happening. So for us oldest girls sort of thing, that might have been a different look if we were, say, our brothers, and what that dynamic, even those sibling dynamics, what that looks like between us and our dads, or us and our grandparents, and even between us and our brothers and sisters. And you'll see all sorts of iterations of who's in, who's out, who wants to be in, who wants to be out. And that's, again, it's a whole other piece of dealing with business and dealing with family that I think, to Tina's point, is some of the best stuff and can be some of the most challenging stuff. So my next question is for Sarah. A focus at ABFI is helping families to prepare for succession, and we're always curious about experiences of family business. So Sarah, could you tell us how you were prepared for the role of CEO or president?
Well, I guess I'll back it up a little bit. So for us, so I have 2 siblings and 3 cousins. My uncle's in the business, and we're a very seasonal business. So we always had summer jobs there. It's funny. Tina said clean the bathrooms. How many RV shows dressed up as a little newsie, hanging up flyers and everything. I think as part of the family business is you start at the bottom. I've cleaned many a trailer in my day. But working there during the summer while I was in university, it really gives you an idea of what the business is and what's involved. And I think what my father did really well is that it was never an expectation. It was always a choice. So if I wanted to be involved, I had to choose to be involved. He never put any pressure on me. I don't know, my brother's here, maybe his story is different, but he never put any pressure on me to join. In fact, when I started university, it was with the distinct goal of not being part of the family business. I wanted no piece of that. Because I had seen some of the tolls that it had taken, and it was, it's tough. But when I went to university, I worked in the co-op program, and I worked for the government, which I hated, and for GE Commercial Finance, so a large corporation. And what I really learned about myself was I valued variety in my job, and I wanted to have an influence over the direction of the company I was working for. So when I stepped back and I took stock of my opportunities, I'm like, well, I have that. So, but I also, maybe it's an oldest girl thing, maybe it's me thing. I'm a bit ambitious, and I wanted to grow the company. So before I joined, I had a conversation with my dad, because we were at the time where we were one main location, and then we had a satellite location on Santa Trail. And I said, I want to grow the company, and I want to expand, but I appreciate that if you don't want that, this is going to not work for us. And he was great. He's like, yeah, no, if you want to do that, all the power to you. He's like, I'm happy to be a support. I don't want to be the lead on that. I don't want to do that work, but I'll stand by you while you do that. So that was the expectation coming in. So I think for us, having that communication up front, so he was aligned with my goals, was really important for preparing. And then I think going to university too, and working in the co-op program, and having some experience outside of the family business for me was really, really valuable. So yeah, that was kind of my journey. So I interviewed for an open management position, started working my way through the roles, and moved my way up. And he slowly transitioned his way out till I came back after my maternity leave, and I came in and he went out.
Yeah. I love that. Come back from a maternity leave and be in charge, right? I did that a couple of times, actually. So, although I did come back for one maternity leave pregnant, which probably isn't the cutest thing to do, but it happens to the best of us, sort of thing. I love that you interviewed for an open position and then were a successful candidate. I think that's kind of interesting, and we talk a lot about what that looks like for different businesses, and different families have different criteria, and how much time you have to spend working outside of the business, or is there an expectation that we just go right into the business? I know my first experience, I applied for an open position and was an unsuccessful candidate. So I didn't quite make it the first time, but the second time I tried, I got in there. So this is good. Do you guys have any other specific requirements for participating in the family business?
I would say at this point, no. No, other than so I think the requirements are similar to anybody who's working in the business. There's an expectation of being accountable to your role. Entitlement has no place for myself or anybody in the family. You need to prove yourself, and all of the family members that are in the business, I think, understand that, and they do a good job there. And we try and not have family members report directly into family members. Yep. I always joke that nepotism is alive and well at Arrkann. We have lots of employees that their kids work there now. Yes. So it's not only my family, but there's lots of people's families that have siblings there who've been with us for a while. So it's kind of spreading out, which I think is not something that's been a deliberate choice, but I'm actually proud. I think it speaks to the culture that a parent wants to bring their child in to work with us and help them grow, because they had a fruitful career there. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I find that's one of the most remarkable things now, seeing that in our business too, where people's sons and daughters are working for us as well. And it's a really special thing for sure. And it speaks very highly of the culture that you guys have created. That's fantastic. Alrighty, so we'll move on to talking a little bit more about communication and reporting. So this is interesting. So that comment about not reporting, or family members not reporting to family members, sometimes, depending upon the size of the business, that's reasonable, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you will have to report directly to a family member. And so with the idea of reporting to a CEO, for instance, a non-family CEO, Jillene, what has your experience been in reporting?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So when I entered the business 18 years ago, I've never reported to a family member. The only family member when I came in was my dad. And there was lots of other managers for me to report to. And in fact, I think probably 5 layers between me and dad. a funny story, though, would be that he would often call me to his office over the intercom. And I'd be like on the plant floor, not hearing it, of course. And like he would put people in a flurry, being like, oh my God, like the CEO needs to see you. Like you should go to his office. And I get there and he'd be like, what are we doing for dinner tonight? Dad, you put everybody in a flurry. Anyways, but yes, I've had the opportunity to work for some really great managers over the course of my career. And I think there is something really wonderful about having the opportunity to work for someone who puts time and effort into growing you. And I think whether you're in a family business or not a family business, when you have had a leader that you can get feedback from, who can pour into your life and who can share insights is a tremendous opportunity. I think sometimes in family business it can be a bit tricky, and I have had, especially in the early days, leaders who are scared. They're scared to be honest with you, and they're scared to tell you what you actually need to hear. And I'm grateful that the majority of the leaders that I reported to didn't take that approach, and who really just treated me like everyone else, as I expected to be, and as they should have, because that's what's really going to allow me to be a good leader versus not. So I'm grateful for that. I've reported to many different people in the course of my career, and where we've landed now is that I'm actually in a co-leadership position with my brother. So my brother joined the business about 12 years ago. And for a number of years, we actually worked in very different parts of the business. Like we wouldn't have even had to have spoken to some degree. Of course, we did talk, but just naturally in the course of our day-to-day lives, our business lives didn't intersect. And that really changed about 4 years ago when we took on vice president roles and now sat at the same executive table together. And I took on the vice president role of manufacturing, and he had the vice president role of sales and marketing. And so those two roles, we were tied at the hip together to some degree to manage, the majority of our workforce occurs between those two roles. And then two is really the true operations of our business. You know, what makes us tick, the selling of windows, doors, and glass, and the making of them and delivering them, getting them to customers, all operated within our scope of work. And so that really allowed us to understand what it was like working together and how we could co-lead. And so it was a bit of a practice.
Yes.
To where we are today. And I was telling Bernie at breakfast, you know, I think in any type of role, whether you're reporting to someone or not, and Sarah mentioned this as well, is just you have to choose to be here. Mm-hmm. And I was grateful. Similarly, my dad had said to all of us, it's your choice of whether you want to be in the family business or not. And when he had decided to but to start the journey of retirement about 18 years ago, he had found a non-family member president and CEO. Because at that time we were quite young. We were just graduated from university, and the business was too large. We were not qualified to be in leadership positions. I was qualified to take time things on the floor of our operations. That's what I was qualified to do, and that's what I did do for a number of years. And so given the opportunity to choose to be in, and then to continue to choose to be in, and in this case, despite he had said to my brother and I years ago, you guys will work together, and I said, I don't think so. I think we'll make a choice. But in recent times, we actually made the choice to co-lead, and that was our proposal to my dad about the next step, as opposed to somebody saying, you guys are gonna co-lead, so.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm kind of curious about how that came about. It's a different leadership style, and it's a different reporting style to have a co-position. So that was more something that you and your brother brought forward?
Yeah, certainly it's been an idea for years, because to be just completely candid, I think my dad didn't want to choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was like, well, the perfect model is that you guys will co-lead. And we both, honestly, for years struggled with that idea. We had very different leadership styles, and we didn't know if we could align around a similar vision and purpose. And we've had the opportunity to really have lots of great conversations about that. And today we recognize the strengths in the differences in our leadership style and how we can actually leverage that for a better leadership model. And as well as in terms of the really align around this common vision and purpose.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are really complementary. It's a really interesting way of doing things. I think it's really great, and it seems to work out well for you guys.
Yeah, we've just started, but we're really excited.
Yeah, well,
it's
I'm
new,
accepting it.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we've been excited about is just recognizing that collaboration, team collaboration, has been increasing in organizations across many industries, including our own. We are being far more collaborative and have been on that journey for a number of years, right? So it's not just, all of a sudden we have one person who makes all the decisions and a bunch of people who follow. We've been working towards a model where really we're making team decisions, we're making decisions by consensus. And so this is just another evolution of that collaborative model.
I think it'll be interesting to see how that leadership style kind of flows through the rest of the business too, right? Like if you have that collaboration at the top, I think it can be very beneficial to everywhere else in the business. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Jillene. So we will move on to our next question. So this one's a good one, and I love this one. We've kind of touched on it, but I feel like every conversation around family business has this little bit of a vibe to it. But the intersection of family life and business life, it looks a little bit different for folks in family business. Discussions around the dinner table might be a little bit different than non-business families. Certainly, our home life can impact our business life, and if we're feeling good about things, I always like to start with the good, because I'm naturally like, ooh, if we're having some conflict at home, or if we're having conflict at work, and it creeps into the home life kind of thing. But I'll start on the positive side. So when things are going smoothly at work or smoothly at home, it all kind of helps. And again, each family and each business, and even relationships between and amongst siblings and parents, kind of dictates how we manage these conversations and how we manage our interactions. And, in my years with ABFI and talking to other business families, I've heard of lots of different ways and strategies for managing this. Some people, at home, we don't talk business at home. There's no work talk at the table kind of thing. Some people, it's just a natural fit, and that's where they feel more comfortable talking. And alternately, same thing, for bringing our family stuff into the office or onto the floor. So my question is for Tina. So some of us do work with our parents, some of us work with our siblings or children, and possibly all three. We get to cousins that, as the businesses grow and evolve, that just gets more and more complicated. So what's your experience been like working with family members, whether it's your dad or now your daughter? Yeah.
This is an interesting question. It's been a journey. And I remember one time my dad said, well, why are you seeing a psychologist on a regular basis? And I'm like, well, I work with my dad, my brother, and my husband. I mean, isn't that, and so, it has been a journey. And in fact, the three siblings, myself, my brother, and my sister all work in the business. And, my dad's a serial entrepreneur, so for him, he wants to talk business all the time. He didn't really have anything else to talk about. He didn't have any interests at the time. And we started to have children, and so we go to family dinner, and everyone would think it'd be family dinner, and my dad would take us aside to talk business. And our spouses, kids would be crying, our spouses would be mad. We'd go home and have a big blow up with our spouses because, we had to have a family discussion. And my dad goes, well, that's the only time I can get you guys all together and blah, blah, blah. And so we had to actually put some structure in place. And we have, people talk about mentors or advisors, and we've actually had a woman in our business about 18 years now. We've been very fortunate, a family advisor that really, saved our organization, because at one time I was ready to leave, my brother was ready to leave. We were just all fighting, my dad, my brother, and myself, because our thoughts and our back to, the way we would lead and do things were different. And she came in and helped us and said, okay, here's the boundaries. At the dinner table, when it's a family dinner, there's no business discussion. You set a separate meeting. And when my dad would try, we'd say, no, Dad, the kids are here. Oh, yeah, okay. But what she also taught us to do was to learn, from each other that you kind of bring, the hierarchy. I'm the eldest, my brother's next, and it's like, you don't know anything. You're just a little kid and all this. And she brought in brought in for us to communicate, back to your comment, Jillene, about communicating and realizing that, our styles are totally different. My brother's going to go this way to get to the decision. I'm going to go this way. Mm-hmm. But once we realize that, the heart of each of us and the values and the morals and everything are exactly the same, and we all have the same goals, now it's easy for me to say, you know what, as long as I know you're going to get to that same spot that I would, it doesn't matter how you get there, right? Your style is going to be different. Mm-hmm. So that has been something that's been very, very important. And again, just the work-life balance in any business is a little bit more complicated in a family business, because people say, oh, you're so lucky you have your own business. Well, we do. We have lots of opportunities, but it's a 24/7. You're always on call. You're responsible for every other employee's livelihood. Yes. You're responsible if something goes on, wrong with a building or a construction or whatever ends up happening. So you don't ever kind of just get to say you're a 9-to-5 jobber and things like that. So don't get me wrong. It's an amazing opportunity. But it's not just like that. So work-life balance, you have to find that, and you have to take the time to re-energize yourself as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I know my family participated in Roadmap through the ABFI several years ago. Did you guys do Roadmap?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
So I mean, Roadmap's one of those great programs too that really sort of helps, put some structure and framework around those, around those interactions and some boundaries around those interactions, because it can get, it can be problematic, really, to say the least, and I think recognizing it and bringing those some of those issues up, maybe before it becomes a problem or before somebody's wanting to leave, I think it's important to head it off at the pass, sort of thing, and so that I know that was a big game changer for us as well, and also I think in that the recognition that everybody has different desires too. My mom's desire is very much more on the family side and the relationship aspect of it, and she's not at all involved in the business. So her business is the family kind of thing, right? Whereas my dad's business is the business, right? So you all still have to get along, and and fundamentally, I think the thing is that and especially with the siblings. And I read something interesting the other day. Is really your siblings are the only ones that are along with you for the whole ride. Right? So they're with you from the time you guys are born till the end. Your parents are there, but you'll lose them at some point. And, so it's interesting that, and that one just kind of spoke to me too, leading up to this, and that sibling dynamic is very important, and managing those relationships is, I think, it's a bigger part of our work maybe than other folks. Does anybody else have any thoughts or experiences on working with brothers or sisters or anything else they'd like to share, or parents in that way? Or your experience with the Roadmap and how that helped?
Yeah, I think the thing that maybe people who aren't in family business don't think about is that you are, oftentimes getting together with family might be weekly Sunday dinner or et cetera, where when you are seeing them every day, it's like this plus and minus. It's like Tina said, there's this desire, because you are with them till the end, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's this desire, you want to make it work, right? Because you're invested in that future together as family, you're invested in that business together as family. Mm-hmm. And so when things aren't working well, oftentimes you might just say, this job ain't working for me, I'm out of here. Well, in a family business, you're not that's a serious statement to make. Mm-hmm. You do not make that statement lightly to say, I don't think I want to be part of this. And I have known other family business members, not in our family, but where they've made a statement like that, and it was hard to take back. Mm-hmm. And we have to be so conscious, because there's these lifelong impacts. It goes beyond the boardroom or beyond that job into your family life.
Yeah.
So there's decisions that you make and how you communicate can have other lasting impacts because you're not just cutting it off.
No, that's true. And I feel like now too, you think, I have 3 kids. My sister has 3 kids and my other sister has 4 kids, and you think, okay, so what does that mean for them? Because, ideally you want all of your kids to get along too, right? You've got this big kind of, you've got a legacy and you have all sorts of other, there's just a lot of implications, right? And they're pretty far reaching. And really, Jillene, that's, you can't just leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can, but that looks a lot different than maybe it does for other people. So,
and I think people have different priorities. For me, I've always made the statement, like, I want to have Christmas dinner with you people. I want that desperately. Perfect. So that guides a lot of the principles of how, of some of the decisions that I make and how I act or how I approach a situation is I want to have Christmas dinner with these individuals every year.
That's a good one, a good guiding principle for sure. It is, but it takes some time to consider that and to think about that. So I appreciate that. It is, it's a special part of what we get to do, right? Yeah. And I think, we talk about the advantages and disadvantages too. And really, like Tina said, you are afforded these wonderful opportunities. And I feel like that's what most people see, like outsiders see, or all the opportunities and all of the good parts of it, right? But there's challenges. There are profound challenges, and that that we don't get to turn off, kind of thing. And entrepreneurs know that, and people who own businesses know that, right? Like it's all you all the time, right? And I even think about it, and on the retail side of things, for me, I'm in children's clothing, right? So like once those kids go to sleep, second shift starts, right? Then the moms get on the phone and bing, 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 bing. So like, why are you on your phone? Well, I got work to do. No one else is gonna answer, right? So, it's just a different kind of a thing that we get to navigate, I guess. But, that's fun too. And hey, what is smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. So look at us go. Right? Oh yeah, absolutely, Sarah.
My sister's not involved in the family business. And I think what I really appreciate about being involved is the strong relationship I have with my father. That she has a good relationship with it, but it's very different.
Yes.
I understand the shoes that he walked in and some of the challenges that he's faced, and he understands me better. So I think that's the gift that I've been able to get from being a part of the family business is a relationship with my father that would be really difficult to cultivate otherwise, because I worked with him like all day, every day, and we've had some conflict. For me, one of my hard boundaries is when we're at home or not. If I'm at Sunday dinner, I'm at Sunday dinner. It's family topics only, and it's I think extra important too because my sister is not in the business, right? So there's nothing worse than listening to other people just talk about that stuff. And I know when I'm at work, I'm there like 110%, and when I'm not there, I want to not be there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love the term you use. It's a gift. It is a gift to work with your family. It's not without challenge, but it is a gift.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that too that I agree with you, Sarah, because I'm the only one currently in the business, and so I have a younger sister, and then another younger sister, and then a younger brother, and so there's also that perception of being an insider versus an outsider too, which is another kind of part of that sibling relationship that you really have to be mindful of, and that can definitely cause conflict too, and that closeness that you get is and it's the same in the same way that I think that outsiders don't see how turned on these family businesses are and how turned on business owners are all the time. I think that there's a tendency to see only the good part of that relationship, or have maybe some jealousy or feelings around that, like closeness between you and your dad, or you and your dad, or you and your dad. But then in my head I think too, I'm like, okay, but you're not getting the other phone calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the
when
other
you're getting in trouble,
page to the floor kind of thing, like get up to my office right now, right? So
how many of you have been fired by your dad?
Yeah, right, exactly. So it loud and clear, like it's really interesting and it's really mindful, and those boundaries are important, and that really does kind of lead into my next question, and it is for you, Sarah, about we all wear a bunch of different hats, right? So we've got CEOs, we've got VPs, we've got owners, we've got moms, we've got sisters, we've got all sorts of daughters, granddaughters. So, I guess, and you mentioned that you do have a hard boundary about when we're at home or we're at dinner. Is there anything else you kind of have that helps you kind of manage that work-life balance?
Well, I think what was really important for me was to be really clear with myself about what my boundaries are, because I think I can be my own worst enemy. I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I'll just do this one thing, and then I've been on a weekend where I'm like, oh, I'll just do this one thing, and then 4 hours later, I'm like, oh shit, I had other stuff I needed to do. Like, oops, sorry, I guess I shouldn't have. So because I'm really clear about where my boundaries are, like I don't have my work email, doesn't give me notifications on my phone. Like I get that when I want to get it. I don't let my devices ping me and tick me to do that. When I go on vacation, I turn off all the notifications that could draw me in. And I think because I'm really clear about my boundaries, it does a couple things. I make sure I respect it with my team as well, unless it's, there's emergencies, and that's the exceptions to every rules. But, I'm not going to call anyone on my team on their holidays or on their day off. And they don't do that to me either. So there's a lot of mutual respect that I think becomes really close. But it also, I think, sets the tone for myself and everybody in the company that it's okay to have work-life balance. We sell a lifestyle, and we sell a lifestyle in the season where you want to enjoy that lifestyle. Yes. So there's some conflicting pieces right there. So, I think it's really important that I let everybody in my company know that it's okay to have balance in your life. We're closed on Sundays because, and we're retail, it's actually pretty uncommon in our business because the business was wiped out on Black Friday. The whole thing was taken out. Before then, my dad and my uncle were working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, 7 days a week, and they were missing our childhood. And kudos to them, they said, okay, you know what? We're going to rebuild, but we're done. Like on Sundays as Sundays, we're going to be closed from now until forevermore. And that's something that is imparted to me too. And I think that we always have that one day. And I guess the other piece of it is, for me and my husband, I'm really lucky. I have a really great partner. And our family dynamic is really different because I'm the one that's the breadwinner. I'm the one that's out there working full time. And when we were both really lucky when we grew up, his mom stayed home and my mom stayed home. And we wanted to make sure that when we had a family, our son would have that tie to a parent. But that parent wasn't going to be me. Yes. So he's done the majority of the child rearing. And I think that's a really different dynamic. And I'm curious to see, 20 years from now, what my son will have to say about it. And my husband's a way better parent than I am. I have to give him all the credit in the world. But he has this home business now, so now it's great because he can work from home and he can still have his career too, and we can do that. But that was a really hard conversation for us to have as a couple too. So we worked really hard on keeping the lines of communication opening, and he knows that sometimes it's going to be a little more, and he never gives me a hard time if I'm away for a few days or if I have long days. And in return, I make sure that if we're doing something together, that I'm present there 100%.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I really like that. I think, it is that kind of back to that, that different dynamic that we have as women and maybe perhaps as mothers too, right? Where you feel that pull to have to kind of do everything and be everything to all of them all the time. And I know they're conscious conversations I have, especially, and with my son as well, but with my girls especially, that, you should see this, right? Because you need to know what I'm doing here. And I'm not leaving you for no reason sort of thing. And I'm not, waking everybody up at 6:30 this morning and saying, okay, everybody, let's go. Make sure you get on the bus. And then standing here mad and texting the bus driver, don't leave without them because I'm not coming back today kind of thing, right? So, they got on the bus just to close that little loop there kind of thing. But you do, it's different. But I mean, I think it's one of those things too, where it's it's a point of pride, right? And it's a unique experience. Just as it's a unique experience for us and an opportunity for us, it's an opportunity for our children to see, really successful and hardworking women and kind of being able to manage that. But I think you're right, the boundaries are a big piece of that.
I guess the other piece of it, especially not being the primary parent, is it took me a lot of years to let go of the guilt of not being the mom at home all the time. And when my son skins his knee or hurts, he doesn't run to me, and that's not with normal society norms, and that's a really hard one to take. So it's taken a long time, but I'm at peace with it, and I'm okay with that. And we have a really great child, and I'm there, and I've been a part of it too. But I'm not that primary person for him, and that's okay.
Yes.
And for me to say that's a journey. So that's been a tough one. So for women in business that are trying to balance that, there can be a lot of guilt around missing those mommy moments where you feel like you should be there. That I don't know that's been the case for a lot of men.
Yeah, no, I understand it is. It's definitely one of those unique pieces for us, for sure. Thanks so much for that. So the next question is for Jillene. So this one is an interesting one. We're kind of talking about legacy and establishing our own roles and making things our own here. So I know, and again, this is something that is unique to family business, that you come in, and especially as a second generation or a third generation, you're trying to balance the legacy of what has come before you. You feel an obligation to the past, risk takers, visionaries, entrepreneurs who put it all out there and took the opportunity and made it successful, right? And now you get the benefit of being a part of that. So while you want to lead the company somewhere new and carve out a role for yourself, you still want to kind of honor the past and where you came from, sort of thing. So and I guess in terms, the way when we were discussing before today, how we were going to frame this one, we kind of thought of how do we make this role our own, right? Because especially as daughters or granddaughters of founders or CEOs, those are some big shoes to fill, and it's maybe different for a woman stepping into that role than it would be for a man stepping into that role. So just curious, Jillene, how are you making that one your own?
Yeah, such a tricky question. But I love it. I think there's a number of different things to consider. So I think, like you said, the subtext is how do you, in some cases, manage through resistance because there sometimes is,
yes,
when you're trying to do things differently. And if I were to stop there and think about answering that specific question, I think the first thing is to recognize where the founder really wants legacy. And they often do want legacy in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes the way that they want it is actually not as obvious as we think it is. We might assume it's XYZ over here, and really it's something else. So I think the first is to just recognize that they built this, that they do have this legacy that they want to leave, and how can we help continue that on in some way, shape, or form, and what could that look like to carry that legacy? For us, certainly, just part of the stewardship of taking care of the business and our employee base, et cetera, is really important to my dad, and he is. And so that's something he wants to see us continue. And thankfully, that's a value that he instilled in us, and that's an easy one to step into,
yes,
right? That's a really easy one to step into, to say, okay, how do we take care of our team members? How do we make this a great place to work? How do we give back to the communities that we do business in? These are legacies that my dad did build as a foundation, and they're perfectly aligned with what we want to continue to do. Now, how we do that may look a little differently,
yes,
but I think the recognition and really calling out that we're carrying that legacy is part of innovation too.
Yes.
It's the building upon this foundational blocks. So I think that's part of it, is recognizing the foundation that's been built for you, acknowledging it, thanking it, and then sort of sharing how you're building upon it. And then I think there's other things where it's you might want to take it in a different direction or contemplate new things. And I think with any business and leadership, you have to do a good job of influencing. And we all know as business leaders, influencing is a major part of your life. It is no different than family business, but sometimes families require maybe different types of influence and recognizing what it is that's important to them. I guess no different than other business leaders. But, we really, where we have come over the last number of years is we really have added a lot of new senior leaders and VPs and executives who have all this experience. And when we think about being a great place to work, and one of the things that we often say to new hires is that if you want to make your mark on a company, All Weather's the place to come, because you actually have an influence here. And so that is, again, part of that legacy. And so I guess really promoting that innovation in our employees is how we are driving that forward.
Really speaks to your culture too, though. It sounds a lot like the conversation around co-CEOs too.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
That collaborative sort of like mindset, and the way that you guys are going to do things and operate. So, I think that's it is, and it's funny because again, you get that benefit of the family side where if you're looking at your like mission, vision, and values, they're probably, and to Tina's point too, you might get there a different way, but really we're all kind of driving at the same thing, right? And so I think it's it can be challenging to kind of articulate that, and maybe depending upon the timeline in your business development, it's not fully articulated, but you get there. And if you think about it, you kind of know, right? You know what they want, or you would hope
Something my dad, so my dad didn't get a university education. He graduated from high school, and he always suggested that he had the school of hard knocks, but one of the things early on that he did is he recognized that he needed other people to grow. That was one of my dad's greatest strengths, is that he recognized he couldn't do it on his own, and he found partners and brought them into the business in the early 90s. So he brought a manufacturing expert, he brought a sales expert, and he brought them into our partnership group, and he recognized like these are the people that are gonna drive our business growth, and they did. And so even today, when we're bringing in new ideas, even though they're not his original partners, because those partners, they've all retired, they're doing something else now, but we have new leaders that we've brought in, and just recognizing that we need to trust them as well. We hired them for a reason. They're bringing a wealth of experience and new ideas, and why wouldn't we trust them? Why wouldn't we let them help us grow our business and allow them to speak into it? So.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you guys have a really impressive culture there. It's really neat to hear. Anybody else? Any thoughts about that, balancing that kind of like past and moving forward into the future sort of thing and legacy? Tina?
Yeah, I think, the culture, like, I don't know, my father was an immigrant, came from another country with, $300 in his pocket, left his family behind, and just sharing that story with our employees and with our children, because really it's quite a remarkable story, and just sharing that with the community as we give back to your comment, making sure that you give back in the place that you live, because, my father had a dream of a better life, and that dream came true here, right, in Canada and in Edmonton. So giving back to that,
it's really neat to see how that full circle piece comes back to that, to our communities, and how, doing the research before this and looking, everybody's got a really fantastic focus, and that's really what I like too. I mean, it's funny because I think we're a little bit the same. We're building the communities, right?
Yes,
we're essentially we're building the neighborhoods that people will live in, right? And so it's it's really interesting to see that kind of legacy. And I mean, and to Sarah's, and Sarah's company, you're creating a culture and you're creating a lifestyle for people, and allowing them to enjoy their time together. And so I just think it's it's a really special opportunity for all of us. So I've got a couple of questions for everybody, and on the panel. Although I suppose if anybody else has anything to say about it, you're welcome to, but you're going to need a mic. So the question for all the panelists. So is there anything that you can see in your, looking at your experience moving into family business, or, what's ahead for your businesses? What can families and businesses do to create more inclusive environments for leaders? And specifically maybe female leaders, but leaders of any sort. I mean, whether that's something around, parameters around moving in and out of the business, or, anything.
I guess we do have a parameters. If you are a family member with ownership in the business, you need to be working in the business as part of a shareholder
Yep.
agreement. So you can't not be a part of it. So I think that's part of having the same rules for everyone. And if you're going to have an exception, being open and transparent about that,
Yes.
so that that people understand the reasons why you made that choice. I think that transparency is really close. It was really close, really important, and that there's clear expectations that are based on the position and not the person. And
Yes.
you can hold people accountable for their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it can be a place where you can kind of get, some a little bit muddled, right? But having some structure around that, I think, helps. Everybody likes rules. You might not say you like rules, but you like rules. You know what to expect. I tell my kids this all the
It's a
time.
very oldest sibling thing to say.
Yes, it's a total oldest sibling. Imagine that, an oldest sibling thing to say, right? We want some rules and structure around it. I need a backstop here, right? Yeah, exactly. Jillene?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Sarah. I think good transparency and education around, how is it that we operate as a business, and that applies to everyone is a helpful starting point. And when it comes to making it more inclusive, I think continuing to talk about it. Like, where is it that maybe we're not being inclusive, or it's being perceived as not being inclusive?
Yes.
That can happen in any business, family or otherwise, but the perception risk in family business is higher.
Yes.
And that exists. Sarah's point about there's lots of family members, I find out almost weekly about a new family relationship in our business that I didn't know about, and we've got different people working in different places, but the transparency and understanding, and really understanding and managing those perceptions, identifying it if you think there is a risk there, and calling it out. Recently, someone, just as we made this transition to co-CEO, which was about a month ago, so I've been in the business for 18 years, my brother's been in the business for 12, we've been in many different roles throughout the organization. Our sister has been involved in the business on our advisory board. And so does she understand our business? Yes, of course she does, but she's never worked in the business. And somebody had asked, because we were taking on these new roles, is your sister coming in? And we're, why would our sister come in? And she's, of course, she would be welcome to, but she would be welcome to in the same way, that another employee, if she had interest, we'd be looking to say, okay, do we have an open spot there? Like, the same rules would apply as they did.
Yes.
But what it highlighted for me, and the reason I share that example, is that the perception with family business, no matter how often you challenge it, will always exist.
Yes.
And so it's just a matter of continuing to live those values of transparency and authenticity, and showing up with the extra work, like you said, and proving yourself, because people will make their own opinions. So
Yeah, it's true, for sure. So any advice from our panelists about women who are considering taking on leadership roles in their family business? Whether that's like education or, participating or not?
Yeah, I mean, my belief is lead by example, and also, say what you're going to do and do what you say. In our family, education was a mandatory requirement, again, just because that's how my dad got to Canada and was able to make things. And so we put some parameters around the third generation, saying they need some kind of education. Now, may not all be university. Someone might be, more hands-on and get a trade. That's okay, but you have to get something, and that they have to work outside the organization, and that if they do come in, they have to actually apply for, back to your comment, I think you have to apply for and, be hired by whoever division or whatever section that's looking for that job, just as equal to a non-family member, and that it's just not automatically given to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I would guess, be confident in yourself and just recognize that you deserve to be at that table. I think that I know so many amazing women that are just paralyzed by self-doubt and are questioning, do I deserve to be here? And I think that I hear that from women leaders far, far more than I ever hear it from male leaders. I think that great leaders are always growing and trying to improve, and to do that, you have to have a high level of self-awareness, and And with that high level of self-awareness, you're gonna doubt your ability at times. That's gonna be normal and natural. And you're also gonna encounter a lot of people that will diminish you or make you feel like you don't deserve to be there, or make you feel like you are less than you are. And I guess you need to recognize that that's their problem, that's not yours, and make sure you have a network or a small group of people who you trust and who are your cheerleaders, and that you can go for real candid feedback. And they're gonna be honest with you when you need the honesty, but they're also going to recognize your achievements when you achieve them, because you'll need that. And then everybody else, just let them go away, ignore them. But it's that working on that confidence in yourself, because it can be really hard. I think sometimes harder for females than it is for males. We get applicants and we're like, why does this person think they can do this job? And it's almost always a guy. But you'll see that for more than that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, isn't that funny too? And I think it's sometimes, and maybe making a generalization about our industry or the road building industry is, there's not a lot of women. I mean, more and more all the time, right? But, I know when I started, it was not, it looked a lot different, and it was a bit of an old boys club. And as we transition kind of to, a different way of doing things, and it's more collaborative, and you're seeing more women and seeing what these women in leadership positions bring to the table, and how we lead differently typically than men do. And you have a different perception and a different way of being in the world, right? And there's so much value there, and I think it's exciting, and it's exciting to see where that's going to take us, and how those changes are, what that's going to look like for business in the future. And especially with this transition of wealth and this transition of, business, and that generation of business owners kind of moving into retirement and out of their businesses. It's, look at all these firstborn girls that are just chomping at the bit, right? So here we go. It's very exciting. So I see Matt stood up, which is my cue that it's Q&A time. So if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and raise your hand. You will need to speak into the mic. We are Zooming this, so the folks on Zoom wouldn't be able to hear your question if you don't have the mic. So if anyone, and I think Sam's going to monitor the Zoom chat if there's any questions from there. So I'll put it out to you guys. Any questions from the audience?
Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. I just wanted to ask if you have any stories of if there was a time when you kind of doubted your decision or thought about whether this was the way to continue, and kind of how you moved through that sort of internal conflict.
Awesome. Anybody like to take that one?
Yeah, I think that's human nature, but I think it's even more common for women, as you said. And I think it just goes back to that, having the right people around you to give you the support that you need to say that, yeah, you know what, you are doing a good job, and no one's perfect, and you are going to question some things that you've done and some decisions you've made, and I should have, would have, could have, but can't look back, you can only look forward. So that's advice I'd give you.
I'm happy to share a story. It's fairly public because I shared it with lots of people. So about a year and a half ago, I quit my job. So I had shared with my family, or we had gone through a role transition. So I was the VP of manufacturing, and had felt I had run my course in that role. So one, I wasn't particularly passionate about manufacturing in the way that I felt I needed to be the key leader in manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very specific operational space. And although I love it as a sort of generalist oversight role, the person who's driving lean on the floor, that wasn't necessarily my passion. And I recognized I had offered lots of value as a leader to bring that team together, but that we needed somebody else to really drive that forward. And through some really tough conversations with our partners, so at the time our operating partners would have been myself, my brother, and our CEO at the time, we decided that there wasn't a role for me in the business, and that I was going to leave the business for a time. And that the time may come where I would come back, we didn't know. And I would say the work to be okay with that. There was a lot of inner work because I felt guilt leaving, or even contemplating leaving. I felt like I was leaving a legacy piece, a piece of me. I feel, the business feels a bit a part of me too. And so I felt guilt. I felt guilt for leaving the team. I felt sad. But at the same time, I got to the point where I felt at peace because I knew, when I put my business owner hat on, that the business would do better in that having a different leader in that role. And so if I sit at the shareholder table, being our advisory board table, it was the right decision for the business to find someone else, and the right decision for me, because my heart wasn't singing about that role anymore. And so what we did is we actually told internally our business. So we told all the people that reported to me that I was going to be looking, because we didn't want people to find out as we started a public search, not from me. We didn't want them to find out not from me. So internally we shared the news. And again, as we went on a public search, it was fairly public knowledge. It took us a year and a bit to find my replacement. And of course, again, I love our business. It wasn't about leaving the role or leaving the business. It was just about needed a change. And so it took us a year to find a year and a half almost to find someone and put them in the role. And some new conversations happened about maybe a potential new partnership, which is where we landed to where I am today. But the point is that it was contemplated, and ultimately, I think that I had to make that decision for me. And in fact, my brother had to contemplate what it was going to be like to not have me in the business for us to actually create this partnership that we have today in the co-leadership role. I'm not sure we would be where we are if we hadn't gone through that journey. So I'm grateful for it.
Great question. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Jillene, you had mentioned that your sister is on the advisory board, but not an operator within the business.
That's right. Yeah.
And we'd kind of talked about the insider-outsider dynamic and inclusivity. I'm kind of curious about what that journey was like for your family to get to the point of having a board and having somebody who hasn't been in the business traditionally, and how you also helped her maybe be a valuable part of the board.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we did roadmap when my sister was 14. So when we started talking about business and family and what did those different roles and the three-circle model, business owner, family hat, she was really young. And so she's always been part of those conversations. And so we did start a family council right after roadmap, I would say back when she was 14, 15. And so she was part of those meetings. And so that's always given her some insight into what was happening in the business through our family council. We set up an advisory board probably 6 years after that, when she was in her early 20s, and she was going to business school, so now she had a different insight. And at first we actually didn't have her part of those meetings, and then we started to ask her, would you like to come? And then at first she was actually she was listed as a guest in those meetings. But she has a very unique perspective for all kinds of reasons. She's a very intuitive individual. She's brings on the sort of Myers-Briggs, she brings the F, where my brother and I don't necessarily score highly on that scale. She does, and so she is very intuitive, and because she's sort of listened to these conversations for her whole life, she has tons of insight. And so we started to really see that, and I think she became an official member when we did do some share ownership transfer. So my dad, we transferred some shares, and so all of us have shares in the business, including her. And we did actually some work with our family advisor at the time of what is the role of an owner. And there is a very specific role of owner. And even as people who worked in the business, my brother and I realized that we actually had to take on a different role as owner. And that was a new learning for all of us. Actually, frankly, even my dad, right? So, okay, what does ownership look like? What are the roles and responsibilities under that? Good governance, these pieces. And she really felt she could step into those roles. And so that's been a really valuable part as well, is to understand the difference between owner and operating member. And of course, she's always poking us about, this is 2 business operations. You guys need to step it up a level into the ownership level, which is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Someone's got to keep you accountable.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
Thanks, Matt. I'm just curious, if you were to go back in time and reflect in your childhood, of any activities or attributes that you now have contributed to who you are today and running these companies, but or people that you hung out with, or like I say, the games you played, or things like that. Like, do you reflect now and think, oh yeah, I ran 10 lemonade stands, and that's contributed to leading these companies? Anything like that?
It's funny, someone just said to me recently, my youngest aunt is only 3 years older than me, and we kind of grew up like siblings, her and myself and my uncle, who was 10 months older. And she said to someone, and it didn't dawn on me, I didn't realize it, but it is true. She said that she was scared to try anything. She was like too scared to, she might get hurt or whatever. Her brother jumped into everything no matter what. And I always said, I'll try. And so I didn't really realize that. And so that's kind of maybe how I've evolved, just that personality of saying, okay, I'll try. I may not succeed. And quite often in athletic area, I did not succeed. But the fact that I would always try, I think that's kind of maybe, I don't think I realized that at that age, but sometimes inherently who you are as a person helps to, you're not going to change that, right? Yeah. As you grow older. So.
It's funny you mentioned athletics. Like, I grew up swimming, and it was a very individual, personal thing, right? And I have to work really hard to become a team player, because it's not. I don't like group work. I don't like all those sort of. But it was a very, to me, and I reflect on this often. It is a very straightforward connection between what you put in is what you get out. Right? And that's really, and I'm like, okay, if we're going to put the work in, we're going to see a result, sort of thing. So I think that, philosophically, is really, it fits with kind of how I view the work and how I view, really all of my work, and also why I put all my kids into swimming. No, I'm just kidding. No, I did, but now, more or less, sort of thing. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where you really see that kind of shine through, right? Maybe don't notice it, like Tina said, exactly, until someone, puts that to you. You kind of understand your leadership style a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I am recognizing it in my child, though, some of the replications or sort of, chairing of meetings that she takes on regular occasion.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else? Well, I guess if no other hands are skyrocketing up, maybe we'll call it. I just would like to say thanks to everybody for joining us this morning. Thank you to Tina and Sarah and Jillene, our panelists here. I think that was really great, and I enjoyed hearing from you guys. I enjoyed getting to know you guys. Thanks to CWB for bringing us all here together today, for everybody for showing up today, to Matt and Sam at the back, and then to ABFI too. I think these are great opportunities for us to get together and hear, share some experiences, and learn a little bit too from each other. So thank you very much.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, check our website, www.road55.ca.